Forest Institute Immunities and Privileges Order 2024.
I call the Minister to move the motion.
Well, thank you, Mr Twigg. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairpersonship. This is my first statutory instrument as a Minister. It's a pleasure to be here along with the Shadow Minister and others. I beg to move that the House has approved the European Forest Institute Immunities and Privileges Order 2024, copies of which were laid before this House on the 15th of May 2024. And it is my pleasure as Minister of State to commend this motion to the House on behalf of the government. This order, which I hope is uncontroversial in nature, was laid in draft before Parliament on the 15th of May in the previous administration in accordance with the International Organisations Act 1968. It is subject to the affirmative procedure and will be made once it is approved by both houses. The main legal recourse to grant privileges and immunities to international organisations with a presence in the United Kingdom, as we were discussing in the main chamber yesterday, is the International Organisations Act 1968, which specifies the maximum privileges and immunities which may be accorded in the UK to various categories of international organisations, and the provisions of the Act are applied to the different organisations by means of an order in council, Mr Twigg. This order will confer on the European Forest Institute, referred to as EFI hereafter, a bespoke set of privileges and immunities to enable the organisation to function and operate effectively in the UK. It does not confer legal capacity, as this was conferred on the EFI in the European Forest Institute Legal Capacities Order 2005. And this order will contribute to the fostering of closer collaboration between the EFI, its members and the UK Government, and support the establishment of an EFI UK office. I think this is a cause which I think there's probably unity on across the House. It was a measure started under the previous government. It's one that we intend to continue with. It allows important collaboration on forests, important issues in terms of our protection of nature, our tackling of climate change and our support of biodiversity globally. And in addition, granting these privileges and immunities, we will therefore be able to host an expansion of EFI's International Partnerships Facility in the UK, Mr Twigg, through the opening of a UK office. The International Partnerships Facility is a global centre of knowledge and expertise that supports policy and governance reforms to improve forest governance and safeguard the world's forests. The AFI would host a small permanent London team, as well as draw internationally renowned expertise into the UK. And with London as a major hub for private sector climate finance, there are potential opportunities to bring international forest and finance experts together to foster new financial initiatives aimed at protecting the world's forests and tackling climate change and nature loss, which are major priorities for the Foreign Secretary, myself and the whole of the new government. This order affords the Director, Head of Office and EFI staff members a bespoke set of privileges and immunities, Mr Twigg, which diplomatic agents of a diplomatic mission established in the UK would be entitled to, including an exemption from the suit and legal process. However, and as with the discussion we had yesterday, no immunity is conferred in the case of a motor traffic offence or damage caused by a motor vehicle. And this is now a standard clause included in statutory instruments and treaties providing for privileges and immunities. The Government considers these privileges and immunities both necessary and appropriate to deliver on the interests and commitments that the UK has towards the EFI. The privileges and immunities conferred will enable its staff to operate effectively in the UK, and they're within the scope of the International Organisations Act, as I've described, and in line with UK precedents for similar organisations. The EFI's board members and representatives of members are subject to official act immunities, and these immunities cover inviolability of official papers and documents, customs provisions, and immunity from suit and legal process within the scope of official activities. And they also cover the inviolability of the EFI premises and archives, taxes and customs rates, and an immunity waiver. Mr Twigg, in conclusion, the support for the EFI's establishment of an office in the UK is a unique opportunity to reinforce the UK's leadership on international forests and climate policy. The UK has been involved with the EFI for over 10 years, including through the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office's flagship Forest Governance, Markets and Climate Programme. And together with the EFI, we have supported national policy processes on forest and land use governance in 17 countries across the 3 tropical forest basins. The EFI is key to that work continuing. The UK is committed to that organisation. I hope this can be seen as just an important procedural and administrative matter to enable that work to continue, and I commend the order to the House.
Yeah.
The question is that the committee has considered the draft European Forest Institute Immunities and Privileges Order 2024. I call the Shadow Minister.
Thank you ever so much, and it's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship for the first time in this parliamentary term. I'm grateful to the Minister for his remarks. The agreement between the UK and the European Forest Institute was of course signed under the previous Conservative government in March of this year by my noble friend Lord Benyon. My honourable friend will be therefore relieved to hear that we will be supporting this draft order before the committee today, although I am aware that he and I are finding ourselves in agreement a little bit too much, so we shall see how I feel this afternoon when we have the Iran sanctions regime come forward. But we are pleased to see key elements underpinning that agreement now put onto the UK statute book. Ultimately, it allows the EFI to establish an office here in the UK and for us to deepen our collaboration with the Institute on forestry-related issues. On this important subject more broadly, I'm grateful to the Minister for his praise of the programme the previous government ran, which helped to avoid 413,000 hectares of ecosystem loss around the world. At the COP26 summit that we hosted, more than 140 world leaders committed to halt and reverse forest loss and land degradation by 2030. And our Environment Act is helping to drive products gleaned from illegal deforestation from our own supply chains. I would be grateful if the Minister could provide further detail on how the Labour government will address the underlying and often deeply entrenched drivers of deforestation around the world, support new forestry and tackle illegal deforestation. And through this draft order, what plans does he have to use the foundation built by the last government to work with the EFI on forest-related issues? We all know, Mr Chairman, that deforestation is environmentally damaging. Not only does it destroy habitats, including the habitats of some of our most treasured and endangered species, but it also hurts biodiversity, depletes our carbon sinks and scars once beautiful landscapes. Lesser known, but just as significantly, it upends the livelihoods of some of the poorest people in the world, and combating this has to be central to any UK strategies aimed at addressing deforestation and, of course, the resulting impact on migration. So to conclude, I hope the government will show ambition in this area, not only reaping the benefits of the UK EFI agreement, but also building on the strong legacy left by the Conservative government. And if they do that, they will find us a partner in doing so. Thank you ever so much.
Minister.
Well, thank you, Mr Twigg, and I'm grateful for the support of the Shadow Minister and indeed I hope of the whole committee. I hope she will also support the Iran sanctions order later this afternoon too. I'm sure we'll have a slightly longer debate and important issues that we need to discuss, Mr Twigg. But I'm glad for the support. I'm glad for the common ground on this issue. It is absolutely crucial when we come to issues of nature and biodiversity loss and, of course, our tackling of the climate change emergency. And obviously it comes at an appropriate time as we are between the biodiversity COP and indeed the nature COP and then the COP in Baku on climate change. So I think showing our support for this important organisation is key. She asked about the work and how this will sit with our wider plans, and I can tell her that, as I said, the EFI has been involved directly with supporting the delivery of the FCDO's flagship forest governance programme, which we obviously intend continues, and that programme aims at reducing the illegal use of forest resources and ensuring benefits for the poorest people who depend on forests for their livelihoods. And with the support of that programme and other development donors, EFI have established the expertise and stakeholder network on forest governance, deforestation and climate change, and that's providing guidance to over 20 countries. And I mentioned the international partnerships facility. That's also going to be absolutely key in making this work going forward and contributing towards our wider work as we modernise our development programme and ensure we're focused on achieving the sustainable development goals, and that's going to be involved obviously in tackling issues relating to the expansion of agricultural crops, illegal logging, land use conflicts and other issues which you will know are key and unfortunately driving some of the challenges that we find in forest environments. And I'd also point out that the EFI can work very closely with our temperate forest measures, which are already driven forward by my colleagues in DEFRA. So here we have a focus on the international with the domestic coming together for nature and climate change. And I do hope that all of the House will recognise the importance of that. As I said, the EFI is a valuable partner for the UK in delivering our international ambitions on biodiversity loss and sustainable development, and a London office that functions fully is going to serve as a valuable catalyst, Mr Twigg, for bringing together international expertise and bringing that to bear on forest governance globally. So I hope with those remarks I have answered her question and given the House the surety they need, and I commend this order to the House.
The question is that the committee has considered the draft European Forest Institute Immunities and Privileges Order 2024. As many of that opinion say aye. Aye. The contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Order, order.